Hey folks, this is a story on one of my trips that I made to the West Coast. When I was living in Winnipeg, I had a shop in the early 90s on Portage Avenue, and was running a vehicle, was either my Acadian or my Chevette. So a four-door vehicle, four-door compact car. And I used to do a spread of about 5 banquet tables, so 8-foot tables, and then set up crates on the back pieces of them, and set them up on their sides, and made kind of a fortress, I guess, but maximized the amount of space it could use to display stuff. So, yeah, I would pack in those crates and use it as part of my setup. So I needed to be that compact to fit everything into my Chevettes, or my Chevette or Acadian. Let's just go with the Acadian for now. So I think that's the vehicle I was using. Anyway, so I would pack things in things. So if I had a vase or something, I'd pack something smaller inside of it, just to maximize my space in my packing. And it was kind of like a big puzzle, which I got pretty good at after a while. When you're out picking, you've got to fit everything in. You can't necessarily go back for stuff. You go to an auction or something, and you've got a load, and you don't want to travel an hour or 2 hours back to get the rest of your load. You want to pack it all in one load and move it. Otherwise, your profits tend to go out the window in fuel and time. But so I packed that way in my my Acadian, and like I said, it was a compact car, a little hatchback, and I was headed out to BC. What had been arranged via the show's promoter, which I met him at a local Winnipeg show, and I needed somebody to travel with. And the friends that I had that were going already were paired up and were headed there, so they didn't have room for an extra. So I had to find somebody else to travel with, to split the costs with, split fuel with, which was the way to do it, to make it worthwhile. So this guy said that he knew a dealer in Saskatchewan that was going to the show and was looking for somebody to pair up with to split the expenses with. So at the time, I asked around and to a few friends to see if anybody knew this guy, and nobody seemed to know him. Turned out I just asked the wrong people. But and there, after I was paired up with this guy to go, a couple of the people I had talked to said, can't you find anybody else? And that was kind of the warning, I guess, about what was to come. So anyway, I just figured, well, it can't be all that bad. So, how bad could things be? Little did I know. So, anyway, so I got my vehicle all packed up. It was a beautiful day, I remember, and it was just gorgeous. And I was stopping in Brandon, which was only 2 hours away, to visit my cousin for a day or two. So, sorry about that. We're going to have a few little splits and such in the video. Anyway, you've gotten to see the Chevette that I used. And anyway, so I had packed up this vehicle and headed off. Closed up the shop for a week and headed off to do this show. So I stopped in Brandon and By the time I got to Brandon, it was starting to sleet and snow, and I was having problems with the battery in my vehicle. And I ended up fixing it, luckily easily, on in the parking lot of my cousin's apartment building. Turned out it was just a loose cable, so I managed to tighten that with a pair of pliers and get it going again. So I was lucky. I'm not overly mechanically inclined, so I didn't. Luckily, there was no major work to be done. So anyway, so I hung out with my cousin for a while, and she and I were driving around, and I forget where we were coming from, a restaurant or headed to a restaurant or something to that effect. And we stopped behind a couple vehicles that were turning left on a road, and then we were just sitting there for a while because these vehicles were turning left and it was taking some time. And then all of a sudden, wham! We got hit from behind, and we were in a compact car, and a Blazer, so a full-size truck, hit us doing about 70 or 80 kilometers an hour, and we were stationary. So we went forward, and it basically pushed the taillights of her vehicle in by about 10 inches, and left us with sore necks, of course. So the police did show up, and there was very little, if any, damage to his vehicle at all. And we had no way to get to the police station. So the police told him to drive us and meet them at the police station. So we ended up getting in his vehicle. I was in the front seat and she was in the back. And this guy that hit us didn't really apologize or anything, was the funny thing, or one of the funny things. And the very first thing he did when he started his vehicle, the radio was turned up full blast to an opera station. So he cranked that down, and then he did a U-turn in front of the police. Then he realized he didn't have his seatbelt on. He went to put a seatbelt on, then swerved into oncoming traffic, and then swerved back. So that was kind of the introduction to this guy. We ended up at the police station, spent some time there filling out their reports, and then we got dropped off at the hospital to get checked out. So this guy drove us to the hospital as well, which was risking our lives traveling with this fool. But anyway, we got checked out at the hospital, and doctor there checked us both out and checked out my cousin, and I think he was checking her out in more ways than one, but that's not too sure what was going on there. Flirting with her, I think, a bit. But anyway, so we of course had no vehicle and such, so I was my neck was sore, but he didn't give me a call or anything. He said just be cognizant of it or aware of it, and if it started to get a sore neck or something, then get an x-ray and get a collar. So that's fine. So I ended up after staying there a night or two, I had to head off to a little town called Senalуда, Saskatchewan. I was meeting this guy there. So I ended up getting there, and I got there at night, and slept in this one of his kids' beds, and had to hang out there for the day and load up tomorrow. So he had a truck and trailer that he was loading, and I was going to unload all my stuff into part of the truck, and I was paying 50% of the fuel and expenses. So this is how it was going to go, and I assumed there would be me and him going to this show. Well, he had a crew cab truck, like not the type with doors, but the type you get out from behind the seat, where the seat flips down and you crawl out the driver's side door or the passenger door. So anyway, come morning, my neck was sore. So I convinced him to drive me to the hospital in nearby Indian Head, where I got checked out. Had to pay to get checked out because I was out of the province, or out of Manitoba at the time, so I had to pay for that test. And I think I got x-rayed, and they said I had to wear a foam collar because I potentially had whiplash. So I had to wear this collar for at least a week. So that's fine. Okay, great. Now I got a collar, and I'm not supposed to twist my head or anything. We did get the vehicle loaded. Some of my stuff in the back third or back 25% of his half ton, and turned out he was hauling a trailer as well. Now this trailer was a piece of work. We'll describe it a little bit in the future here, but we ended up when we went to leave, of course, it turned out he was taking his wife, his 2 kids, and his dog. And I got to sit behind him on the this narrow bench seat with this dog and the 2 kids, and the dog is snapping at the 2 kids because they're teasing it, and it's not exactly great for traveling with. And we're going all the way to BC, to Vancouver Island, or not Vancouver Island, sorry, Vancouver. And yeah, so great. And it turns out the couple were chain smokers. So basically it was a haze all the way there of smoke. And of course this collar I had on reeked by just the first 24 hours. So as it turns out, we were driving, and we drove all the way through Saskatchewan, through Alberta, but on the way you could hear kind of weird humming and such when we went over bumps, and it turned out that this trailer had been built out of 4 drive shafts welded together. Now I don't mean cut and put together like a log cabin would be and then welded together, which would be the way you would expect, but just sat on top of each other and tack welded together, and that was the frame of the trailer. The rest of it was built of scrap, and I'm all for repurposing, but the stuff that was used for this trailer was trash. And he had built it originally to haul garbage from town to their local dump, and now he's using it to haul inventory all the way from Saskatchewan to Vancouver, which is a 3 days drive through the mountains. So on the way, we're not even to Regina,